Is the high in on Bitcoin, or can we expect another rotation to the upside? What am I looking at next on Bitcoin and Ethereum? This is what this video is all about. So I'm going to give you a quick update on Bitcoin and Ethereum, what I'm looking at next, which trades I am currently in or interested in taking next to be prepared for this Christmas period. So as always, let's start by looking at a little bit of the context on Bitcoin. And we all know that we have had this nice current all-time high being formed at around 108,000 ever since we've seen a large drop to the downside, actually. So is this bearish, or is this still a good place to look for long trades? So I'm going to give you my perspective, as I said. And one thing we obviously have to keep in mind when we look at this is that for now, price is still holding a series of higher lows, right? So we have not seen, at least on the higher time frames, a very bearish market structure change yet. So yes, we've seen a large drop to the downside, and that was a drop of over $10,000, right? But overall, we are still holding higher lows. But in my opinion, there's one very important thing we have to keep in mind, and that is that this low down here looks very unfinished by now. So for the ones who are members of Chart Champions, know a very unique statistic that I built a while ago, and that is a 0.25 statistic. So what we can do is connect this local low and this local high. So overall, this 0.25 is always a good place to look for a long trade. But this statistic suggests that once we start to lose the 0.25, there's a high probability of taking the low from where we have anchored this 0.25 to. And that means if we look at this as losing the 0.25, we can expect a rotation into around that $90,000 zone to take the liquidity, because statistically speaking, the probabilities have significantly increased. One more thing to keep in mind down here is that there is a lot of resting liquidity down here. This is also a nice psychological level, being the $90,000 zone. And this would be an even better place on the higher time frame. So if we look at the same level, so this 0.25 range, but look at this entire range, we can see this $90,000 zone is lining up with the overall 0.25 here as well. So my eyes are drawn towards this level. We can also check some additional confluences and see that we do have a nice daily level lining up with this level as well. So I'm not saying we're definitely heading towards that level, but one thing I can say is that for me, I'm not interested in looking for any further long trades where we are now. So for me, to look for my next long trade, I would want to see a rotation into the psychological $90,000 zone to then look for a long trade. So this will be my key support throughout the next week at least. If we even check this on the fixed range tool, look at the volume inside this latest all-time high range, we can call it, this is even lining up with the value area low. So what we can see locally is that we got acceptance back below the value area high. We lost the point of control. So technically speaking, we could look for a rotation into the value area low, and then we have all these great confluences waiting to be tested down here. So for me, no long trades where we are now. I would look for 90,000 to be taken out, and then I would look for a long trade down here. So the stop loss is dependent on where a local low is going to be formed. And this trade even has swing trading potential. The overall gain or aim for this trade would be to take out the all-time high. But I have to be aware of local resistances. So this point of control has to be a take profit 1, value area high, take profit 2, weekly 3, and then this will be the overall target for this trade. So that is what I'm looking at next on Bitcoin in terms of the long trades. So let me also have a look at some local resistances, because in my opinion, At least locally speaking, there's only one I am looking at. So I can call this my swing long on BTC, swing long. And let's now have a look at some resistances. So what's already screaming to me is this daily level lining up with this range point of control. In my opinion, especially during this Christmas period, there's a lot of work needed to break above that daily level lining up with this point of control. We also have this weekly naked point of control lining up with that level. So let's go down to the lower time frames. I can actually hide this fixed range because we are aware that this is additional confluence for this zone. And then what I always like to do, this is just, yeah, if you take anything away from this video, it is whenever we form a significant pivot, being a significant high or a significant low, we always want to anchor a anchored VWAP and have a look at this as a key support, or in this instances, this is anchored from the all-time high, a key resistance. So what we can see here is that this anchored VWAP is coming into this daily range point of control and weekly NPOC zone as well. So there is some massive resistance in between 97,300 for now all the way up to 99,000. But what we can expect is obviously the more time we spend down here, the lower this anchored VWAP is going to move as well. So if we just spend a little bit more time down here, this anchored VWAP is or will even line up more perfectly with this daily and naked point of control. So I am considering this as my key resistance, where I'm even interested in a short trade and yeah, at least aim for taking out the liquidity. So what we have at this level is 1, good confluence lining up with that level. 2, nice price location on the lower time frames, because if we split this into a 0.25 range again, we can see the 7.5 is lining up with the daily perfectly. And we also have the context in favor, being that we are in a local downtrend and we have unfinished lows at around 90,000. So in my opinion, this is the best trade for me, at least, to look for in terms of the short trades. No financial advice, obviously. And this is just what I am looking at next. So there's one long trade I'm interested in. If we get that level, I would even be interested in taking that over the Christmas period. This will be the liquidity grab of 90,000. And in terms of the short trade, there's just one level I'm looking at, and that is this daily weekly naked point of control anchored VWAP in between 97,000 and 99,000. Invalidation would be a move above this high right here. So on Bitcoin, I'm keeping it very simple, looking at these two trades only. In between, I'm waiting patiently for the best levels to be hit. So let's do the same for Ethereum. And on Ethereum, before we begin, there was one short trade that I gave to our members. It was weeks in advance. That was the liquidity grab of 4,100. We can see that was a perfect SFP on the daily. It was even a perfect SFP on the 4-hour time frame. So in my opinion, for everyone who has been aware, this was a must-take short trade. This dropped, let me measure it, this dropped 24%. So that was such an easy trade if you are prepared. So yeah, I myself am in this short trade, and let's have a look at what happened down here. So there was one weekly naked point of control at around 3,135. I was actually drawn towards a liquidity grab taking out the 3,000 level. But then we had members ask me, is this a nice long trade? And what I said was, I am waiting for local market structure changes. Because if we start to see a sign of strength, although we are prepared for lower levels, as traders, we can obviously react to what the market is showing us. And what we've seen in this local price action was the following. We have hit this NPOC. We've taken the previous 5-minute high. So we've made a higher high. Then price had a retracement for a higher low. We have broken the highs once more, and at this point, as a trader, I have to classify this as a confirmed market structure change, and I was able to position myself long down here. So even though I was prepared for lower levels to come, as a trader, the great thing for us is we can react to what the market is showing us. So that's what I was doing here. But let's have a look at where we are now and what I am looking at next. So I am still interested in the 3,000 liquidity to be taken out. Now, what's even better with this higher low that we formed here is that now this might line up with Bitcoin. So say, for example, Bitcoin is taking out the $90,000 zone and Ethereum is taking out the $3,000 zone. We do have some great confluences for both, right? Because we know Bitcoin and Ethereum are obviously correlated. So I want to be aware of what Bitcoin is doing and then translate that context over to Bitcoin as well. So this is definitely my next big level of interest for a long trade. But then there is another thing to be aware of. So I want to hide a couple of levels, at least these two liquidity grabs. So this down here will be based off an SFP. If there's an SFP, I can obviously look for a long trade taking out the liquidity. But what I like to do, this is my way of trading, I like to look for reference points. So the confluence down here is taking out 3,000, but I for myself want to see a sign of strength. And for me, a sign of strength would be to reclaim this weekly. And only if we reclaim the weekly and do a market structure change, I have a long trade scenario presented to me. This would then use a local invalidation that was taking out the 3,000 zone, and then I would aim for a new all-time high, but obviously same as on Bitcoin, take profits along the way. So this is my swing long on ETH. And what I like about these reference points is always I have a simple yes or no answer, not only if the confluence level was taken, which is the 3,000 zone, but also do I have a local sign of strength? So if we think about that, if we take out 3,000, then manage to reclaim the weekly and manage to change local market structure, we can definitely classify this as a sign of strength. So this is what I will be doing for this trade. And yeah, this is leaving me in the best place, to be honest with you. So if this level is lost and I don't get my entry criteria, I am looking for this previous supply zone to be tested on Ethereum, which is lining up with a nice CC. So for me, it's going to be 3,000. If that does not hold, I'm looking at 2,780. This is the overall CC from this low to this high. So let's check this. That is the CC right on this previous supply zone. You all probably know by now that I love these previous supply zones. So yeah, this is definitely my next level of support, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I don't have to be the one trader who longs the absolute low of the move. I want to see a local sign of strength first, and on Ethereum, this will be a 30-minute market structure change upon hitting that level. If I see this pattern forming, I would be interested in taking that long trade at around $2,800. In terms of the long trades, that is the two levels I'm looking at. Currently positioned in a long from down here. I am in a short trade from the highs, so that's already perfect. But if we take out 3,000, I'm interested in a new long trade. If there's no sign of strength given down here, I would simply wait for 2,800 to be tested. And yeah, that's leaving me with the best trades. In terms of resistance, I gave that short trade a while ago. I even announced that on Twitter and posted when we were still trading up here that I have just taken a short trade. So you definitely want to be aware of these updates as well, but they will obviously be delayed as opposed to the updates we do in the Discord over at Chart Champions. So let's have a look at some local resistance here as well. So for me, I must say I'm not too interested in opening new short trades just because this trade was a short trade from the absolute high. But nevertheless, let's have a look at one key resistance here. And that will be this downtrend anchored VWAP. For me, this is too weak, to be honest, to be classified as a compound entry. But at least for the day trades, I am looking at the zone between 3,500 and 3,600 as some local resistance. So yep, that is going to be my quick update on Bitcoin and Ethereum. I hope you could learn something from this video, because I always like to explain exactly what I'm looking at so you understand what I'm doing here and can even replicate that. So I'm going to stay patient the next days, looking for the best trades only. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Have some great time with the family. And yeah, let's all be patient and wait for the best trades only. So see you in the next YouTube update, and goodbye.